Good afternoon or evening, depending on where you might be. My name is Kevin Michael Grace, and this is the KMG show. And as you can tell by the police siren or ambulance outside, I am back in Victoria. Let me just adjust this a little bit here. There, that's better. I don't know. The light looks decent. Let me bring you up to speed on what has been happening. On Friday, I packed up and moved to Victoria. I was lucky. I got a ride from Surrey to Tsawwassen, and Surrey is Canada's largest municipality. So it was a long drive, close to an hour. And I noticed that this terrible stink in the car, and I wondered what it was. And then it was explained to me. It is marijuana farms in Delta. Yeah, marijuana farms. And so I had 3 large heavy suitcases because I packed my desktop computer and my monitor, which barely fit in, and I thought that it would be broken or disfigured in some way, but it seems to have survived. This is I'm staying at the same hotel that I was the last of the 3 hotels that I was in Victoria this year, and I'm staying here because I figured that since I'd stayed here before, they wouldn't give me a big fuss about not having a credit card. I mean, I have a credit card, but it's one of those prepaid credit cards. And oh dear, what happened there? It's one of those prepaid credit cards. Hotels do not like those. But no, I got in all right. Setting this up was a bit of a challenge because there's a table right here, and there's a much larger table that was put directly in front of it, so that this chair was jammed right up to the bed, and that was unsuitable. I guess they're just doing the, everyone is obviously using a laptop now. So I had to take this very large table out of here, and given that there's almost no room next to the bed, that took some doing. But I got it all up. It's very, very cramped situation here. Very, very cramped indeed. But it seems to be working. Since the COVID hysteria started in, February, the hotels have not been cleaning the rooms. They only clean the rooms when a guest leaves, and it seems to be rather a cursory cleaning. This room has not been cleaned properly, obviously, for months. But these are the times that we live in. Oh, and I'm using the Wi-Fi from the computer, which seems to, I haven't had any complaints yet. However, it is weak, and it does not like tabs. It does not like I went to a protest. Was it Saturday or Sunday? I went to a protest again. Yeah, Saturday. There was a protest against the lockdown here in Victoria, and it was held at the Ministry of Health office on Blanchard Street there with their signs, holding them up to the people driving by, and we had some people honking in support. I reckon there was about 150 to 250 people there. I could not find anything about it in the Victoria Times Colonist. I did a Google search, DuckDuckGo search. I could not find a single news story about this, there's the lockdown, and then there's the news lockdown, because we don't want to hear. Have told us that we must be locked down. How about that? I can't, trust me, there's nothing that I can do about this. So before I start talking about the news events, I'll just update you on my struggles with my financial institution, Van City, which have become rather comical or nightmarish, actually. because on Thursday, as I explained, I was at my local Van City branch, which was luckily like 2 blocks away from where I was staying, twice, because they didn't know what was wrong. Okay, and they fixed my card. They keep asking me, "Were you tapping?" No. I've learned my lesson. I was not tapping. So I faced the prospect of coming out here on Friday and being actually homeless because I wouldn't be able to, pay money or lineup. I guess I was there about 10 minutes early, but there's already a lineup. And I get to the front of the line and I explain what's happened. And, it's one of those situations where this was the 4th time that I had been in that branch in 3 days. And the clerk across the counter is looking at me as if this is my problem, that I'm an idiot, or I don't know how to follow instructions, or I don't know how to use a debit card. So so the clerk hands me over to one of the women in an office, and she updates my card or issues me another new card, which is my 3rd or 4th new card in the last week. And we check it with the ATM machine, and it works. So then we go across the street to a Wendy's, and she says, buy some fries. And if it doesn't work, I'll pay for the fries. Well, card didn't work. So we get back to the office, and essentially they wash their hands of me because I say that, look, I'm moving today. Oh, we can send something to your address. I said, I'm not going to have a permanent address. Well, you can go to the Van City in Victoria, and I will alert one of our IT people. So, of course, the Van City branch downtown is closed for COVID-19 and has been closed for months. And their main branch, which is about a mile from here, it's not open on Saturday because, of course, it isn't. It used to be, but, COVID-19 and all that. This morning, it is torrential rain here. There's a storm here in Vancouver Island, in the Lower Mainland. And it is snowing outside, wet snow, which is the very worst kind of snow. And I knew that if I went to Van City, there would be a lineup of, I don't know, an hour or whatever. So I thought I'll do that tomorrow. But to say that my patience is exhausted with Van City. The reason that the window is open, sorry to digress back to that, is that this room is insanely overheated and the thermostat does not control the heat in the room. So I've had to keep the door open, the door to the balcony open all the time, which lets in the ambient noise. Also, you may be hearing ambient noise from the wall here, and it is water. Pop, 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 pop. And I had a nap a few hours ago, and I woke up, and it was very strange because I had the one of the classical channels on the TV, and it was they were playing Dvorak's Legends, and I thought this is a very strange and innovative introduction to a piece of 19th century music where it appeared to be a single snare drum playing a tattoo. And then I realized it was not a drum. It was not from Dvorak. It was the racket made by the water on the other side of this wall. So with all that said, let's talk about lockdown madness. Because do you remember the good old days? The good old days back in, March, say, where we were going to flatten the curve. And then having flattened the curve, we could go back to normal things. No, that's not happening. Is it ever going to happen? Let's see. Metal Mike says Ontario is in lockdown. Yes, I'll get to that in a minute. Hello to Pelcasso 88. Ed McNeck. Hello to you. Gamion Palpcast 88 says Doug Ford is a lunatic. No. He is a progressive, conservative. Matt Beck, thank you for your prayers. I appreciate it. Okay. The background music is pure Victoria, says Ed McNack. I really would prefer to close the door, but I would start sweating. I start sweating through my clothes very quickly, and I don't want that. Contra Coup says KMG's troubles are making me start to think gang stalking is a real thing. Matt Forney says, had a visual KMG in the scene from the lives of others where the main character is aghast, discovered that the Stasi had been surveilling him for years. And Ronald P. says they're not even talking about bubbles anymore. And just, let's see. Check in with the panic report, the Drudge report. Biden dosed. Yeah, a needle was stuck in his arm. What was in the needle? I wonder. Representative Ilhan Omar slams AOC for getting shot early. Ooh. You know, I told you that intersectionality is the war of all against all, and all I can say is more, please. Apparently, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said that it was a matter of national security that she get a vaccine for the oldsters. Nurse who fainted goes missing, forcing hospital to deny she's died. This was a nurse who was one of the first to receive the jab. How denial, mismanagement, magical thinking led to dark winter. Oh, is that what it was? Watchdog details extensive political meddling with CDC reports. Oh, perhaps someone complained that the CDC was counting as COVID deaths anyone who was suffering from something else, who was infected in the hospital, someone who had caused a car crash, that sort of thing. Burke's Travels, family visits highlight safety perils. We'll probably get to that soon. LA braces for worse. Newsom back in quarantine. Perhaps he can have some of that French Laundry food delivered to him there. Mutant strain spreads. Oh my God. We're all going to die. Resistant to vax. Travel bans. UK isolated. I will speak more about the idiocy of Boris Johnson shortly. But I have television, broadcast television, for the first time since August. And I've decided that broadcast television is not good for me. That with the CTV News last night started with this mutant strain of COVID-19. And there's this meat puppet woman sitting at the desk. And I, of course, I was reminded of the famous lines from Macbeth, tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. But that would give it too much dignity, to quote Shakespeare. This is mimesis fomented by female hysterics of both sexes. Oh, and then later on in that newscast, they had one of a good news story. Yeah, we're all bummed out about COVID-19, but we are still trying to get through our lives. And apparently, scuba training has now become virtual. Oh, are swimming lessons going to become virtual now? Is everything going to become virtual? Maybe you can become a cordon bleu chef without ever having entered a kitchen. How about that? And I just the witless story delivered by a quasi-human had me muttering, shut up, shut up, shut up at the TV screen. But perhaps that was a result of recent events in my own life. One thing that I noticed before we get back to the Corona doom is watching Canadian TV, these cable stations, the free ones. I watched an episode of King of the Hill and then 2 episodes of Frasier on Friday night because I was exhausted from the move and schlepping these suitcases. And so I just was down on the bed watching TV. CMT was the station. You would get the impression watching CMT that 50% or more of the Canadian population is Black. Now, it's nowhere near that. What is it, about 3-4%? Something like that? But no, every commercial was all Black people or half Black people or whatever. And then when I would switch to MeTV, which is the old man's TV show that I watch late at night, I found that the representation of Blacks in their commercials was pretty close to the national average of 12.3%. This is one of the prices that one pays for living in Canada, is just this relentless gaslighting, relentless psyops. But here is a genuinely inspirational story, and you may have seen this. And I don't know whether the Western Standard is the only, the video went viral, and I don't know whether the Western Standard is the only publication which has covered this. Not much coverage for a really remarkable story. This is by Dave Naylor. A tense confrontation between Calgary police officers and a group of outdoor shinny players, that means hockey, ended with an arrest and a public relations nightmare for the force. "I will fucking taser you," one Calgary officer screamed at a young man playing hockey on an outdoor sheet of ice in the southwest community of Southwood. Bylaw officers were called to the rink in response to a group of men and children playing an outdoor game Thursday. A woman who appeared to take credit for calling the police tweeted a picture and referred to the men as COVIDiots. She has since deleted her Twitter account. Yeah. And there is a screen cap here of this woman with the tweet. When bylaw officers couldn't get the players to move on, police were called in as backup. Outdoor gatherings are banned by Alberta's United Conservative Party government in a bid to stop the increasing rates of COVID-19. The 2.5-minute video begins with 2 female officers yelling at the skater called Ocean by his friends to get off the ice. Another male officer explained to bystanders that gathering is against public health regulations. People in the crowd yelled bullshit as the 2 female officers struggle unsuccessfully with Ocean. One of them kneed him in the back in a repeatedly failed effort to take him to the ground. One of the officers fell down on the ice, and Ocean was able to skate a short distance away. Okay, I've seen the video. Here is a man, a young man. He's on skates, whereas the 2 chick cops are wearing boots. They could not bring him down despite assaulting him. I mean, he skated away and then he came back and they had a second go at it. Reason number 79 why women should not be police officers. "Get on the fucking ground before I taser you," one officer screams at Ocean, who ironically is wearing a Bolts journey. The officer unholstered and points her weapon. Another struggle ensued, with Ocean pleading, "I haven't done anything wrong." During the time the videos were taken, a total of 4 minutes, 40 seconds, the police officers failed to respond to questions about what law he was breaking or was being charged with, causing the charges being laid. Provincial restrictions state that outdoor physical activities are still permitted for people from different households if the number does not exceed 10 people and individuals maintain 2 meters distance. The Calgary Police Service released a statement claiming that there were 40 in attendance before the video began to record. The statement says that civilians are required to give their identity to police when ordered. However, the UCP government recently banned the practice of carding as discriminatory and arbitrary. Ocean was evicted and then receives 3 knees from the officers into his back as police brutality. As well to handcuff Ocean, other people began taking phone videos from less than a foot away. Another officer stepped in to take control of Ocean's legs. This is our life. We are fucking humans, Ocean yelled as the handcuffs were clamped. What kind of life do we live in? Other officers cut off Ocean's skates, and he was taken away to be charged with violating a public health order, obstruction, and resisting arrest. Speaking to CTV News over the phone Saturday, Wiesblatt confirmed receiving the tickets, including for violating the Public Health Act, which carries a fine of $1,200. And people thought I was exaggerating when I warned unreasonable restrictions would result in excessive use of force. You own this, Jason Kenney and Nenshi, who is the mayor of Calgary, tweeted QR77 talk show host Danielle Smith, who was formerly the opposition leader in the province of Alberta. But this story gets even better. Man arrested for playing hockey comes from family of players raised by deaf single mother. Ocean and his siblings were raised by their single mother, Kim White, in Calgary. In 2019, the family was featured in an intermission of Hometown Hockey on Sportsnet. And Kim White was born deaf and later gave birth to her 5 children along the way. They struggled financially, but she sacrificed so her 4 boys could continue to play hockey. This is a story about hope, courage, community, and a mother's love. And all of these things have been outlawed in Alberta in the year 2020. Ocean, or Ozzy, this year played with the Prince Alberta Raiders and was a first-round draft choice of the San Jose Sharks. He was chosen 31st overall. Oh, that must be his brother. Ocean himself played for Junior A hockey in Penticton, BC, and had committed to play NCAA Division I hockey with the University of Vermont's Catamounts. He doesn't appear on this year's team roster. Okay, and Calgary police under fire. These are all stories from Dave Naylor at the Western Standard. Calgary police under fire for the violent arrest of hockey player. Let's see. Someone named Kelly Malmberg had tweeted, "Great day for a skate with my pal." And there's a man with skates and a hockey stick and over this. Oh, from Krister Nenshi, again, that's the mayor, to purchase new Calgary COVID police vehicles. And it's Zambonis. Those are the machines that they use to shave the ice and get them fit for play in professional game. Current TSN hockey analyst retweeted videos of the arena. Young people are arrested for playing hockey on an outdoor rink. We are no longer Canadians. On the other side, in a Western Standard Facebook page filled with hundreds of comments, Patrick Friesen said some of the fault lay with Wiesblatt. Although I disagree with the fact that kids can't play hockey, he should have been respectful and listened to the police officers. He is the one who put them in that position. We need to look at this from all sides, he wrote. Yes, and I can imagine, I haven't checked this out, but people are going to compare this with George Floyd and say, oh, when a white person breaks the law versus when a black person breaks the law. Ocean Wiesblatt was skating outside. He wasn't attempting to pass a counterfeit bill. But I guess it's all the same now. It's all of a piece. Ocean Wiesblatt apparently is a lockdown resistor. And he says the fight has just begun. In a Sunday tweet, he said he will be telling his story in the next few days, adding that he is fighting for your freedoms. I will be posting a video tomorrow or the next day to explain the info, that everything that has happened since my arrest Thursday at the outdoor rink. For all the people that are supporting me, thank you, but we are not done. This is only the start. I'm doing this for my freedom and yours. The mask on your face that is enforced by government should be your choice and not to wear someone else's choice because it's your life, body, and health. If you're scared to get sick, protect yourself. I will keep pushing this till this problem is solved. Alone, we can do little. Together, we can do so much. And let's see if I can find the actual tweet from the Calgary police, because it is, oh, we're just following the regulations, you know. Yeah, do they really have to do that? They don't have any leeway at all. Oh, hang on. Let's scroll down here. We have received many questions and concerns about an arrest that occurred earlier this week. This is a tweet from December 19th from the Calgary Police. Please see the below statement for additional information on the incident. Video is circulating online of a 21-year-old man who was arrested for obstruction of an officer and resisting arrest after allegedly trying to avoid a ticket by refusing to identify himself and not remaining with officers when instructed to do so. By law, a person is required to identify themselves if they're being issued a ticket. Otherwise, they can be charged under the criminal code for obstructing an officer. This ensures people cannot avoid law enforcement by simply walking away from police without identifying themselves. The video only shows a portion of what was a long interaction. No one in our service enjoys asking Calgarians to stop doing normal activities. Those two chick cops seem to be enjoying it a great deal. And we completely understand the frustrations these restrictions cause, as our families are grappling with them too. However, our job is to enforce the laws that our elected governments put in place, and our members do their best to gain voluntary compliance. The fact this situation resulted in arrest was due to the individual trying to avoid law enforcement by obstructing and resisting officers. Oh, let's see. Well, where do these laws come that our elected governments put in place? Is Dina Hinshaw, who's the chief latrine walla for the province of Alberta, is she an elected official? Not to the best of my knowledge. Yeah, this is the monstrous regimen of women that we are dealing with here. There is a woman called Shannon Proudfoot, self-described as Ottawa Bureau Chief for Maclean's. Yes, old art, excellent beer, goalies hurrying. No raisins, public stunt marriage proposals, camping, religion gritty. So she tweeted today, if part of the value of a lockdown is the signal it sends people about the risk of their private decisions, and it is, then a lockdown starting December 26 implicitly gives permission to people to cheat by gathering over Christmas before buckling down afterwards. Disastrous. Daniel the Mano, who follows me on Twitter, responded, in other words, you filthy slaves had better damn well obey your masters, of whom I am the most important. Edward Campbell, who is not a woman, but acts like one, responded, exactly, if we did a lockdown, and I believe we do, then it should have started today at 2 p.m. What we have is a sop to GTA suburbanites. Boo! Who still want to shop at Walmart up to 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Those wicked, wicked people. It's nonsense. Premier Ford should resign. He's lost the plot. Yes, the government can never go far enough in suppressing our civil liberties. I'm familiar with this woman's work, Shannon Proudfoot, and it's not good. Here's her latest piece from Maclean's, published today. Old Man Trudeau enters a likely election year as the veteran politician. The leader who rode youthful optimism to power will now contend with a pack of fresh faces in 2021 as an election likely looms. This is all meta. It is all meta. Who's up? Who's down? What are the perceptions? Who is exceeding expectations? Policy? Nah. Who cares about policy when we can quote polls? This is absolutely useless. This is just the complete degradation of political releases, and your job is done. So let's see what's happening in the chat, which has picked up. Okay. Matt Forney again, no new lockdown in Boston, but I'm pretty sure it's a matter of time. Thank God I'll be out of here and in a lockdown-free place soon enough. Visionary companion, the nurse who fainted, the rumors that she died. Yes, I have. Yes, I mentioned that. Glad you're back on the air, says Emmett Kelly's Earth. Well, thank you. I am here till, I guess Friday would be my checkout day. And Friday is Christmas Day. So I suppose I'll have to get another week, because that would just be the saddest thing in the world. having to look for a place on Christmas Day. For Shakespeare lines, I prefer even a worm will turn these days, says Steve. Well, how about this from King Lear? It's not the worst if one can say this is the worst. I know that's not very comforting, but King transmission underwater was self-contained breathing apparatus. No, it's funny. I remember working with this woman years ago. She thought that scuba was, so they came up with a wacky word, and then she for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Contra Coup says, should I risk telling KMG about online-only nurse practitioner programs? If he thinks a chef can do some damage, just wait till he sees what a terrible NP can do. Yeah, you want a doctor or a nurse to actually see you physically, to be able to examine you, to be able to, talk to you. But maybe that's surplus to requirements now. I suppose it is now. Mr. Chuck the Buck Norris, Ontario to lock down for 2 weeks after Christmas. Yes, and as Shannon Proudfoot said, it's not far enough. Why should there be an exemption? Says cops are only heavy-handed with easy targets. This is absolutely true, and it's something that I have observed for quite a few years now. When I first moved to Victoria, I was living in Saanich, and my landlord owned a cafe just a few blocks from where I am today. And actually, this cafe is right across the street from the Blanchard Center, the Ministry of Health. And this is where the junkies get their stuff, their free stuff from the government. So there's junkies outside the building all day long. And junkies being junkies, my landlord's cafe was frequently the attempt of robbery attempts, the site of robbery attempts, and his from this cafe, which is now closed for obvious reasons. And the cops would show up about 3/4. Gamian says, be sure to look up at the sky tonight. Jupiter and Saturn will be the closest. Bad news. It's just not going to be possible to see anything in the stars tonight where I am. Also, Bethlehem Star will be visible due to close proximity, last time seen in the 13th century. Why do hotels buffer? Well, the Wi-Fi is not good. Not good here. Okay, let's get back to it. And let's talk about Ontario and Premier Ford, the far right winger who is the leader of Ontario. He was a hated, absolutely hated figure in the media, amongst the establishment, because he was just so crazy right wing. But hang on, I've got to write something down because I'm going to close some tabs here, and I got to write down the addresses. I have hardly any tabs, but that doesn't seem to make any difference here. So they're just bear with me for like about 15 seconds, okay? Okay, that's one. And the other one, okay. Okay, so, and this one too. All right, so we'll close them, see where that makes any difference. Okay, and hang on again. Okay. I have some water here now. Let's talk about Ontario then. If this thing opened. This is from Sean Davidson at CTV News. Ontario will enter strict lockdown on December 26th. Nearly all non-essential businesses will close. There were signs at the anti-lockdown rally in Victoria on Saturday that said, everyone is essential. That's clearly not how our rulers think, though. The lockdown will begin 12:01 a.m. on December 26th and will last until January 23rd for all regions in Southern Ontario. The health units not in Southern Ontario will remain in lockdown until January the 9th. The lockdown was originally set to begin December 24th, but was pushed back 2 days by Cabinet on Monday. The province-wide lockdown will look similar to the shutdown back in March, with only essential businesses being allowed to remain open. Lockdowns don't work. What's the definition of futility? Which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? No, we need to lock down again. No, just one more. No, just one more. No, bear with us, just one more. During the lockdown, no indoor public events or social gatherings will be allowed except with members of the same household. This difficult action is without a doubt necessary to save lives and prevent our hospitals from being overwhelmed in the coming weeks, Premier Doug Ford said Monday. Make no mistake, thousands of lives are at stake right now. If we fail to take action now, the consequences could be catastrophic. The hard truth is it's not going anywhere until we are able to vaccinate more Ontarians. Yes, protect the hospitals. The hospitals are supposed to be there to protect us, so that the nurses and the staff can, bump and grind on TikTok. Childcare centers will remain open for the duration of the lockdown. The government said an earlier version of the story said that childcare centers will be open to essential workers, but the Premier's office now confirmed that will only be open to essential workers. But the Premier's office has confirmed this is not the case. Under the lockdown orders, bars and restaurants may only remain open for takeout. Shopping malls will be closed for in-person retail, with members of the public only permitted to access the facilities for essential services. What does that mean? In-person retail shopping banned. Essential services allowed. This is bad writing. Hardware stores and pet stores can only remain open for curbside pickup. Libraries are allowed to remain open for curbside pickup. That's pretty funny. Are people they're gonna be lineups of several blocks long for people to get their free reading copy of the latest Stephen King novel? Mayor John Tory, that's of Toronto, thanked Ford on Monday for ordering the province-wide lockdown, saying it is needed to protect the health of residents. This kind of strong stand against the virus, take that virus, is needed to save lives and to protect the health in each and every one of the residents of our city and of our province. Tory said, I support Premier Ford's decision, and I thank him and his cabinet and his caucus for making the difficult but absolutely necessary decision that they made today. Meanwhile, new modeling released Monday forecasts an increase in COVID-19 related deaths heading into the new year, while the number of patients with the decrease in intensive care units in the province is expected to surpass the 300-bed benchmark within the next 10 days. Yeah, it's cold and flu season, so more people are going to die. Nobody could have possibly seen that coming. But of course, cold and flu have been eliminated. They have been, they disappeared. They banned, perhaps? Who knows? Who knows? There's a piece on offguardian.org by Patrick Corbett called Utopia Coming to a World Near You. We've been told by the promoters of the pandemic, Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, and others, that it's ushering in an opportunity for a great reset, and COVID-19 is the doorway to it. Independent reporters like Corey Morningstar and Whitney Webb have told a similar story without the glossy optimism. The World Economic Forum has been running ads showing attractive young people having a great time and saying, it's 2020, I don't own anything, and I've never been happier. They don't go into just who will own everything, but as they haven't proposed eliminating capitalism, it isn't hard to guess. According to the consortium of capitalists and their organizations, such as the WEF, World Bank, and even the UN, we have a technocratic revolution led by AI, robotics, and nanotechnology to look forward to. There will be a huge reduction in the need for workers. Scenarios are proposed which anticipate some form of UBI for the unfortunate masses. From that majority position, it looks like a very gray dystopian future. And maybe that they want the people who are wise to the embedded within the Great Reset, and that is depopulation of humans down to around 8 billion. When I previously thought of this idea, the image that came to mind was of a horrific blood-spattered massacre, not unlike a scene from The Walking Dead. Now, I suspect they've come up with something entirely, virtually the entire world's population, and will Vac's point, I think most people would have to sit with that for a while, if not outright snort their coffee out their nose. But I'm not alone not in considering this or contemplating the possibility. Dr. Mike Yeadon and both warn that the Pfizer vaccine will likely impair our ability to procreate. Quote, the vaccine contains a spike in women. If the vaccine works so that we form an immune response against the spike protein, we are also training the female body to attack. Doctors Yeadon and Vodard are not fringe medics with pet theories forged in fevered imaginations. Dr. Yeadon was former head of research and vice president at Pfizer, and Dr. Vodard is an MD, PhD epidemiologist, lung specialist, and former chairman. Member of SAGE startled his interviewer when he said, these vaccines are unlikely to completely sterilize the population, say 60 to 70%. That's a quote. Of course, they wouldn't include their own billionaire class. They, along with the royals, seem to be below them in economic class are the political operatives, presidents on down, professional scientists, and the few specialized workers they still need. Investment quote from an August 1994 article. Quote, the authors include that their findings provide insights to possible endocrinological effects of an HCG3-CTP-based WHO-promoted birth control vaccine on which a phase 1 clinical trial has already been completed, and that might not reliably fulfill major express. Just imagine the pandemic, they wind it down. People, the great mass anyway, are kept perpetually on the back foot by bizarre policy shifts, always in the interests of biosafety, of course. The sterilization plan takes some time for people to catch on. When it becomes apparent there are far fewer children being born, they will have a plan to explain it. It was a vision series, late to the game. I was here. Utopia, great title, this show. But just keep this in mind, that we are asked to accept a vaccine, and we may well be ordered to. The vaccine, we're not going to let you out of your house. Vaccine that it admits is not suitable for pregnant women or women who could be pregnant, which is pretty much all women between events, concern or anger or I don't know, panic about this. Well, again, this is more misinformation because everyone loves Big Pharma, and Big Pharma would never talk. So put your trust in Pfizer. From Hernan Cortez, at Modern Cortez on Twitter asks, is this cyber Prometheus? Pennsylvania Department of Health encouraging citizens to use only during COVID-19, but if you attend a large gathering where you might end up having sex, is this an orgy we're talking about? Below are tips to reduce your risk of spreading or getting COVID-19 through sex. Limit the number of partners. Try to identify a consistent sex partner. Wear a face covering, avoid kissing, and do not touch... Oh, come on, they're trolling us. And do not touch your eyes, nose, or mouth with unwashed hands. What if you'd wash them and then, it starts to get hot and heavy, and then you have to wash your hands again, and then again, and then again, and again? Wash your hands with soap and water often, well, apparently, and especially before and after sex. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. If you usually meet your sex partners online, consider taking a break from in-person dates, video dates, sexting, subscription-based fan platforms, or chat rooms may be options for you. Public health authorities in the 19th century famously said that masturbation would make people blind. Now they're telling us that masturbation will save your life. Didn't see that one coming, did you? Of course, in my own province of British Columbia, the Ministry of Health has recommended glory holes. I'm not going to describe what glory holes are, and you have been warned if you choose to look this up. And I just, again, I have to ask you to bear with me because I'm really opening like one thing at a time here because, I don't know, apparently I'm putting an intolerable strain on the Wi-Fi here. Now, this is very good. This is Professor Martin Kulldorff of the Harvard Medical School. Disease surveillance methods, infectious disease outbreaks, vaccine safety, free SAT scan, tree scan, and re-sequential software. And 12 forgotten principles of public health. 1, public health is about all health outcomes, not just a single disease like COVID-19. It is important to also consider harms from public health measures. 2, public health is about the long term rather than the short term. Spring COVID-19 lockdowns simply delayed and postponed the pandemic to the fall. 3, public health is about everyone. It should not be used to shift the burden of disease from the affluent to the less affluent, as the COVID-19 lockdowns have done. 4, public health is global. Public health scientists need to consider the global impact of the recommendations. 5, risks and harms cannot be completely eliminated, but they can be reduced. Elimination and zero COVID strategies backfire, making things worse. 6, public health should focus on high-risk populations. For COVID-19, many standard public health measures were never used to protect high-risk older people, leading to unnecessary deaths. 7, while contact tracing and isolation is critically important for some infectious diseases, it is futile and counterproductive for common infections such as influenza and COVID-19. 8, a case is only a case if a person is sick. Mass testing asymptomatic individuals is harmful to public health. 9, public health is about trust. To gain the trust of the public health officials and the media must be honest and trust the public. Shaming and fear should never be used in a pandemic. 10, public health scientists and officials must be honest with what is not. Silencing and smearing leads to fear of speaking, hurt thinking, and distrust. Scientists and officials to listen to the public who are living the public health better than some. Menotti from Bologna, Italy, the conscience of a country's population standing against the politicians' 3-year-old child. And one more tweet here. Oh, yes. Yes. That's thousands of variations of COVID. You know, that it was sly, that it was tricky. NHS urgent care doctor. What does Professor Hennigan have to say? Can anyone point? Of course, we have all the data. E.H. Hale on Twitter said the corona panic pushers seem to often just make things up and toss it all against a wall to see what sticks. Most societies in history would treat this as a crime of a coronavirus. As I said at the time, if that is true, then we all have it. All right, we all have it, but withdrawn. Yeah, but it served its purpose, didn't it? It skeptics. So Boris Johnson decides to justify Englishmen and women. And what was the you know, Boris is supposed to be a smart man. Went Eden. There is something new and especially terrifying that exists here, connected to that by COVID-19 there. And lockdown skeptics, Jonathan Barr writes on the situation. The health secretary today warned that the new mutant strain of coronavirus is out of control, as he suggested draconian Tier 4 restrictions could be in place until we have the vaccine rolling of the disease spreads quicker than its predecessor. Yeah, act as if they're infected. I saw a cartoon. People want to get infected with COVID-19 deliberately, so I don't know, they get 2 weeks off work or whatever, and Oh, you had the disease and you survived, so I guess you're not a threat. Hancock said the increased risk posed by the new variant meant existing measures to combat the spread of the disease. C got her jab. She was wearing two masks. Again, this mirrors the AIDS hysteria, where I was informed, oh, I make my husband or my boyfriend use 2 condoms. What's the point then? Seriously. Not surprisingly, the government's scaremongering about the mutant strain prompted other European countries to start imposing travel bans on visitors from the UK. Apparently, this entirely predictable reaction wasn't something the UK government had predicted. Boris Johnson will chair a COBRA meeting. I don't know what COBRA stands for. It certainly sounds sinister. To discuss the flow of freight in and out of the country. Don't be surprised if there is another press conference. Tory backbenchers have reacted to the new Tier 4 restrictions with fury, according to the Telegraph, with some accusing the government of having deliberately waited until MPs had gone home for Christmas before unveiling what amounts to a third lockdown for 18 million people. The mood of these backbenchers is summed up by Ian Duncan Smith in a comment, and he was formerly leader of the Conservative Party and opposition leader, in a comment piece for today's Telegraph. Quote, the old rule that advisors advise and ministers decide is of course true, but when it comes to an issue as complex and far-reaching as this pandemic, it is only fair to do all we can to understand what role SAGE has played in creating the present situation. That is why I believe it is vital for the House of Commons to debate these new restrictions so we may test the rationale behind them as we did the previous forecasts that plunged us into lockdown. Needless to say, Hancock is not about to heed calls to resign, according to the Mail. Yes, the mutant strain. Show us the evidence. Dr. Hennigan, previously mentioned, said, I've been doing this job for 25 years, and I could tell you, you can't establish a quantifiable number in such a short time frame. He added, every expert is saying it's too early to draw such an inference. He added that there was no doubt this time of year, the height of the viral season, that it was a difficult time for the NHS, but he said failure to put out the basis of figures was undermining public trust. It has massive implications. It's causing fear and panic, but we should not be in this situation when the government is putting out data that is unquantifiable. They are fitting the data to the evidence. They see cases rising and they are looking for evidence to explain it. Professor Hennigan said that if it was true the new variant was more transmissible, we should be locking down the whole country as people leaving the capital to avoid restrictions would spread it. Yeah. Let's see. Dr. Yeadon said, or Yardley Yeadon said, I suspect it's invented. It's one of about 40,000 variants, typically emerging from error-prone replication. It would be funny if it weren't so serious if it turns out to be an asymptomatic variant, easy to catch and pass on, but doesn't make you ill. We could call it a vaccine. Is traveling around England and Wales, or no, just England, against the law. And apparently the police do not have the authority to stop people from traveling the country. They have been doing this. The Mail reports that police won't be enforcing the Tier 4 restrictions, at least not on Christmas Day. I wondered about this over the weekend, and they would be inviting terrible retribution if they did this. Again, a pre-revolutionary situation. Again, from Lockdown Skeptics, readers may recall that last month the Johns Hopkins newsletter published a summary of Genevieve Briand's presentation, COVID-19 Deaths, a Look at U.S. Data, which was subsequently removed from the newsletter's website, although it's still available via the Wayback Machine. The reason Briand, assistant director for the Masters in the Applied Economics program at Hopkins, said there was no evidence COVID-19 had caused any excess deaths in the U.S. A pretty sensational claim, given that the CDC claims that there have been more than 300,000 excess deaths due to COVID-19 in 2020. The newsletter has set out its reasons for archiving Briand's analysis here. They're claiming that They're claiming that all of these COVID deaths are excess. That's not possible. It's not possible for any category of death. If you had an earthquake in a country which brought down buildings and killed the people inside, if it brought down old age homes or it brought down hospitals, a large number of the people inside would have died that year anyway. Does the CDC really think that we are so stupid that we cannot figure this out ourselves? And yeah, well, we look at the numbers here, and there's no increase, no increase at all, because the average age of people dying is what, 82, 84. And the people who are younger than that typically suffer from 1, 2, 3, 4 more comorbidities. And of course, they are seeking any excuse to label deaths of people with COVID as being caused primarily by COVID. Now, this is interesting. A similar situation in my own province, British Columbia. According to the San Francisco Chronicle, 621 people have died of drug overdose in San Francisco this year, while only 173 have died from COVID-19. Again, one gets the terrible feeling, going back to that piece from the Off Guardian, that government, our elite, is seeking to cull the weak. This is why euthanasia is being pushed so fervently. And before we move on from COVID-19 and all its attendant horror, let's catch up with Alex Berenson. So this is cute. The CDC is reporting the number of vaccinations in near real time, but they aren't, as far as I could find, reporting the adverse events they receive. We haven't had an update on those since Friday. Way to build trust. Alex Berenson will be on Joe Rogan's show. He says, I wouldn't put up with wearing a mask for 4 hours for any other reason. Oh, yes, he's traveling to Texas to be on the Joe Rogan show. Someone suggests bring food like nuts on the plane and eat them slowly the whole flight so you don't have to wear a mask. I was in the lounge in Tawasin on Friday, waiting for the ferry to arrive. And I bought a sandwich and a Coke. And I had to go through this ridiculous business. Oh, I've got my mask on and I want to take a bite of my sandwich. Mask down, take a bite of the sandwich and then mask up. Oh, no, I want to wash it down with some Coke. Mask. I guess we will put up with anything. It's true. We have decided that we are going to put up with anything. Devon Sawa, he's an actor, isn't he? Wasn't he in that movie about cheating death? What was it called? Final Destination or something like that? He tweeted, I'm sorry, but it really floors me that some of these dudes that could have used their platform to promote wearing masks instead mocked and discredited them and are now at the front of the vaccine line or already through. I can promise I will be at the very back of the mRNA vaccine line, says Alex Berenson. Go right ahead, please. Oh, and something about Dr. Birx. 3 generations of her family traveled to Pennsylvania for Thanksgiving? Oh, but it wasn't about Thanksgiving. Berenson slipped, fell, and landed on Thanksgiving's dick. That's rather crude, but appropriate. I did not go to Delaware for the purpose of celebrating Thanksgiving, Dr. Birx said in a statement. Birx, who has a home in Washington, D.C. and another in Potomac, Maryland, defended the trip, saying that she needed to take care of winterizing the property before a potential sale. Shamelessness is funny, isn't it? I think it's funny. I think it's funny. Let's move on to American politics, and I begin with this caveat that YouTube has decreed that Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. occupies the office of President-elect of the United States of America. And furthermore, that he won the election fair and square, and that anyone who maintains to the contrary is a conspiracy theorist who is doling out misinformation. And I thoroughly agree with everything that YouTube says, but I'm going to continue to report on claims, disputed election claims, because America has not faced a situation similar to this since 1876, and it is very much newsworthy. Let's go back to the chat here. Tom Anderson says, KMG, did you read Steve Saylor's latest piece on Corona? He claims that the official death toll is lower than the actual, and we all need to get the vaccine. Steve freaked out about COVID-19 right from the very beginning. I thought that he was coming around on that, but apparently not. Winterize the property. Potomac, says Steve, one of the richest suburbs in the whole country. Hello, Metatron. Brandon Smith says, Robinette steals from the poor whilst giving to the rich, whilst pretending to do the opposite. I like this from Shogun 666, the great seal of the office of President-elect. Hello, Thomas White. Isaiah Selassie says, KMG's suit has a distinctly Italian cut to the shoulder. How very stylish. It's just the jacket. I don't know whether it ever came with pants. And it was my father's. Pretty well, everything that I'm wearing now I got from my father. So it would have been, donated to, I don't know, the Salvation Army or St. Vincent de Paul, another event. It's not as if, Sotheby's was going to have a sale of my father's clothing. Hello, Charles Nuno. Says that's already what the poor use. Subscriptions, OnlyFans, video dates. That's for the poor. Us. Be sure to look for the Christmas star on 6 p.m. It will be the southwestern sky. Again, there's not going to be anything in the stars where I am tonight. Head McNeck says, Kevin thinking we don't know what glory holes are. LOL. I like to live in a world where I didn't know what that was. I really would, Yep, says John S. The Utopia series on Amazon Prime Video was eerily echoing the current year. Steve says, dial up Minecraft, KMG. Yes, oh dear, we're back to the hotel bandwidth issues. Yes, indeed. I can't do anything about it. Sorry. Gamian says, I think this is the end, guys. Nothing will ever be the same. Again, just more and more revelations of what they had in store for us all along. No, I don't think that, I do not think that. And my own hypothesis is that clearly the climate emergency, climate extinction was a non-starter. And then COVID-19 came out because, it's going to get slightly warmer over the next few decades. Oh my God, we have to wreck the world. No, that was never going to happen. They're trying hard in Canada, though. Justin Trudeau's government is leading the noble fight against man's eternal enemy, carbon. But so COVID-19 comes about and, people are dying. Well, who's dying? I don't want to minimize this, but when, the average age of people dying is 82 or 84, how long were these people going to live in the first place? These people were needlessly infected, the people in the old age homes. And, they suffered at the end in their final weeks because, they have to be completely isolated But no, if you're going to claim that everyone is going to die, stuff is still happening somewhere. Even our SJ government of millennial women has managed. I'll just repeat that. There was a buffering. Yako Rai Paula said, I can't believe this lockdown stuff is still happening somewhere. Even our SJW government of millennial women has managed to take a stance against lockdowns and kept masks, etc. voluntary. It's an interesting thing, swings and roundabouts, you know, that the video from the condo I was staying with in Surrey was terrible because of the problem with the ambient light from outside. Now, you know, I'm in this gloomy area here, but because I have a rectangular desk and not a round one, I'm able to use this special computer lighting, the disc, better than I was in my old place. As I say, swings and roundabouts. Okay, let's see what Jim Kunstler has to say. Yuletide visitations. Welcome to the longest night of the year, the moment of maximum mystification and terror for frail humanity, fretting that the sun might be going away for all the rest of time. Scanning the smoke signals from America's loudest engine of mystification, the New York Times, one searches in vain for some evidence that Joe Biden still exists. There is barely a cookie crumb trail of some hypothetical cabinet appointments, plus a few obviously insincere and artificial sugar plums about healing the nation. Where, oh where, is the party's avatar and the country's savior, old white Joe, in these fraught hours? Has the fabled basement become his tomb? Will his revenant float transparently out into the night sky on Christmas Eve and pass through the walls of the residence at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue to rattle his chains like Jacob Marley's ghost at the foot of the president's bed, wailing, I cannot rest, I cannot stay, I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond the awful shackles of the CEFC Energy Company. Mark me. In life, my spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our family's money-changing hole, and weary juries lie before me. Ooh. It says something, does it not, that the corporeal Joe Biden is missing in action? You'd think he'd be bustling around like crazy out there, trying to at least give some impression of being at large and in charge, preparing to launch a score of battles against the enemies of peace and prosperity lately afflicting this sore-beset nation, yo-yoing back and forth between Jake Tapper and Rachel Maddow to reassure their cringing viewers of wokedom.com, wolfing down plates of field peas, ham hocks, and cornbread to display his allyship with the downtrodden masses of this and that color, gender, flavor, and texture, comforting the homeless on the pitiless streets of our ailing cities, volunteering to get stuck with vaccine needles of every pharma company on the S&P with side orders of hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, famotidine, huddling with the nabobs of Wall Street to halt the sinking dollar, visiting the troops with plane loads of turkey dinners, you know, rallying the worried people of this anxious land in their time of trouble. And what of Kamala Harris? Did she steal off to some Caribbean beach to mull over her options? It appears that she's still holding that seat in the U.S. Senate. Let's face it, a very cushy sinecure that fixes its exalted members for life, and in more ways than one, if you know what I mean. Of all the thoughts racing through Harris's skull these dark days, I suspect the dimmest of them concerns the actual possibility she may actually end up as president. She acts like someone who knows something and knows that the something she knows is not altogether a good something. Notice the giggling has ceased. More from James Kunstler. And so we passed through a weekend of predictable news that Congress has authorized another gazillion dollars to bail out stock markets and banks under the guise of helping ordinary Americans hopelessly crushed by lockdowns and government-induced small business failures, and we hurtle toward what's likely to be the bluest Christmas in memory with the Republic in the balance. The president, that would be Mr. Trump, is portrayed in the nervous mainstream news media as flailing wildly around the West Wing, confabbing with krakens, battling with his closest advisors, all importuning him to concede the election. Do you think so? Maybe, but I'm not so sure. Something more orderly and momentous might be playing out, and on the QT, something that may turn around the odious sham that was the election phase of the long-running coup against the chief executive. Joe Biden, or the ghost of Joe Biden, and the people who manage his hologram must not be allowed to occupy the Oval Office and seize the levers of power. It should be impossible to ignore the evidence of his previously bought and paid for obligations to the folks who run China, although the people who bring us the news do exactly that and are probably acting as accessories to what will amount to one of the greatest attempted political crimes of history. It also appears that in the course of all these fractious election hijinks, foreign actors have penetrated America's most sensitive computer networks, including the Treasury Department, the nuke labs, and the electrical grid. Why not then the computers that tabulated the recent election? They were, after all, hooked up to the internet, though they were not supposed to be. All this is right in the wheelhouse of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the least you can say is that President Trump anticipated it when he shifted out the old DoD top management a month ago and replaced them with, shall we say, a more reliable crew. What remains to be seen this fretful Christmas week is exactly what and who will be flying over America's rooftops on the eve of the great day. And Kunstler concludes, a toast to all my readers and even the rowdy comment gang this hallowed week of our darkest days, and a Merry Christmas to all. Yeah. Who can the president trust? Is there anyone that the president can trust? One hears very disquieting things. Of course, the media would have us believe that the people who work for Trump all believe that, he's an idiot or insane or both, even though, as I've mentioned many times previously, we're also expected to believe that he is a sinister Machiavellian figure. Well, pick one. Alec Baldwin, who previously said that Trump should be buried in a Nazi cemetery with a swastika on his tombstone, is now, he's having some sort of, how should we say, fan fiction fantasies about Trump being physically tortured. Yeah, that's what it's come to. Ivan E. Reichlin, former Green Bay commander at Reichlin, says, you thought Donald Trump was going to pull out the Trump card in this election. Is it actually going to be the Pence card on Wednesday, December the 23rd? And there is a letter here signed Michael R. Pence, Vice President of the United States, President of the Senate of the United States, presiding officer of the joint session of Congress on January 6, 2021. Pursuant to the requirements of Title III, USC Section 12, I hereby request, this is not a real letter, but it could be, so this person claims, that you send the certificate and list lodged with you by the electors of your state and transmit the same by registered mail to the President of the Senate at the seat of government. The papers received by the President of the Senate and Archivist of the United States are not certificates of votes and lists by electors as recited in Title III, USC Sections 9 and 11. And since Article 2, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution requires that each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors, the electors of your state were not appointed in the manner that the insert state, e.g. Nevada, state legislature directed, because the manner in which your state's election was administered were marred with violations of laws passed by your respective state's legislature that included fraud, public corruption, and foreign influence and manipulation in the electoral process as detailed in Exhibit A, which is the evidence. I've spoken about it. You've read about it. I don't need to repeat it. Kindly send the certificates and lists as required by Title III, USC Sections 9 and 11 from electors that were appointed in the manner that your state legislature directed as soon as possible, but before January 6th, 2021. There were rumors, in the last few days of a Trump declaring martial law. He has said that this is not true. Let's go to Vox Populi, Vox Day. Code Monkeys Z reports that Trump is giving the 7 states in contention one more chance to clean up their fraud and get their state in order. December 24th, Pence is expected to tell state legislatures with dueling electors to immediately address the contention in their states to a resolution. States may split electors, certify contested electors, conduct forensic studies, etc. January 6th, not resolved, throw out their electors. And if a state doesn't like it, Vox Day comments, then it can go complain to the Supreme Court, where it doesn't have standing anymore. Yeah. Let's talk about lawyers. According to Vox Day, they certainly don't make strategic decisions, but this report by Patrick Byrne concerning a recent meeting at the White House would sound a lot more concerning if it wasn't obviously limited to the president's legal team. Quote, I was there for the full 4.5-hour meeting. Claims military coup, martial law were discussed as 100% fabrication. Trump is lied to by his own advisors who tell staff, get the president to concede while they stall Trump. Meadows plus lawyers Eric Derrick, general counsel Pat Cipollone, the leaker. Meadows and legal staff led by GC Cipollone reflexively shoot down every sober discussion or idea presented. Their frame of mind is automatic. We better not try that. It may not work. It would hurt your reputation in the press. No kidding. They say stuff like that. Tell Donald J. Trump. Byrne named the advisors he believes are hurting Trump. Pat Cipollone and 2 other lawyers, Eric and Derrick. Meadows wants him to concede and transition also. Vox Day said there is zero chance that this group with that lawyerly mindset has anything whatsoever to do with the NSA and military intelligence teams that set the election trap and is reported to have it all. So while I think Byrne's report is likely real, I don't think it is as relevant as it sounds, because I think this is a legal plan team as opposed to the legislative plan team, as opposed to the Defend the Constitution team. And I doubt President Trump has much confidence in them, because he has a lot more experience with lawyers and knows far more about them than I do. And what does Donald Trump have to say today? Once again, it's Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. who occupies the hallowed office of the President-elect of the United States of America, but for the time being, Donald J. Trump, President. 1 hour ago, Trump tweeted, conservatives call on state legislators to appoint new electors in accordance with the Constitution. 3 hours ago. 2 years ago, the great people of Wisconsin asked me to endorse a man named Brian Hagedorn for state Supreme Court justice when he was getting destroyed in the polls against a tough Democrat candidate who had no chance of losing. After my endorsement, Hagedorn easily won. Wow, he just voted against me in a big court decision on voter fraud, of which there was much, despite many pages of dissent from 3 highly respected judges. One thing has nothing to do with the other, but we ended up losing 4-3 in a really incorrect ruling. Great Republicans in Wisconsin should take these 3 strong decisions to their state legislators and overturn this ridiculous state election. We won in a landslide. Twitter notes election officials have certified Joe Biden as the winner of the U.S. presidential election. There's a tweet here from Senator Ron Johnson who quotes Senator Hawley. After 4 years of being told the last election was fake, the same people are telling us if you have any concerns about election integrity, you're a nutcase. Sit down and shut up. This is not a recipe for success in this country. Again, from Senator Ron Johnson, as Senator Lankford pointed out, in 2016, Democrats were interested in fixing problems to prevent election interference. This year, they just want to ignore irregularities and move on. And there was a comment. Oh, yes. Donald Trump, 9 hours ago, Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia and his puppet, Jeff Duncan, the lieutenant governor, together with Secretary of State of Georgia, are very slow on signature verification and won't allow Fulton County to be examined. What are these rhinos hiding? We will easily win presidential state race. Senators Loeffler and Perdue will not be able to win on January 5th unless these people allow signature verification in the presidential race. K&D needed for the race, and also Georgia's spirit will rise to such a height that they will easily bring home a great victory. Move fast, Brian Kemp. And finally, big news coming out of Pennsylvania, very big illegal ballot drop that cannot be accounted for, rigged election. And Twitter responds, this claim about election fraud is disputed. Oh, and a particular poll worker has been noted. Let me find this here. Yes, this is okay. Yeah. We have, they're videos of very, very, very suspicious things, to put it mildly. But apparently they're completely irrelevant because Joe Biden is the president-elect. He won. So It's all over, apparently. Let's go and see what J5 Killer has to say. Okay. Oh dear. He retweets something from resting Twitface, and there are flags, historic flags of the United States, with the legend, "Our forefathers would be shooting." From Disclosed TV. New Poland defines social media companies that censor lawful speech. A new bill will prohibit big tech companies to remove content or block accounts if the content does not break Polish law. Well, bravo, Poland. And Anna Kraken, or Anna K. Hate, tweeted, "This will not end well for the left. They will lose their minds when Trump officially wins. Expect riots and fires like you've never seen. Trump will not be leaving office on January 20th, 2021. The Constitution is brilliant." January 6th, apparently, 2 million people are being asked to come to Washington, D.C. To protest against the, how would you say, vouched for presidential win of Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. You can't police 2 million people. Think 1989. This was Boswald Bollocksworth III. J5 Killer responded, "Yes, the police are powerless against 2 million Trumpists, and I'm being conservative with this estimate." Paleo had tweeted, "The January 6th rally is to ensure Congress votes his way on the contingent election. No dissenting congressperson will be able to escape." I'm not going to repeat the rest of this. J5 Killer says, "Exactly. Trump has upped the stakes for Congress." And again from J5 Killer, "Trump is not going to do a military coup. He's going to lead a people's revolution. He's going to put 2 million people into the streets of D.C. on January 6th and force the deep state to capitulate. Nearly 2 months ago, I said that if anyone could pull off a color revolution, it would be Trump. And here we are." Let's move away. Let's move away from American politics and talk about a really remarkable piece by Stephanie Clifford that appeared in Elle magazine over the weekend. And it's called "The Journalist and the Pharma Bro." Why did Christy Smith upend her life and stability for Martin Shkreli, one of the least like men in the world? I know a lot of people are laughing about this story, and a lot of people are speaking of Martin Shkreli as the ultimate PUA, a pickup artist. I will point out that there was this movie, 15, 20 years ago, called The Tao of Steve. And I suppose it was an early pickup artist movie. But Steve pointed out that in order to, impress women with these tricks, renouncing desire, appearing indifferent, negging as they call it now, you've had to have accomplished something. And Shkreli definitely accomplished something. He became, a pharma giant, starting from nothing. So if you haven't accomplished anything, I don't think that the general jerkiness of Shkreli imitating that is going to get you that far. Clifford's tale begins almost every weekday for 6 years. Christy Smith took the F train from Park Slope downtown to her desk at Brooklyn's federal court in a press room hidden on the far side of a snack bar. Smith, who covered white-collar crime for Bloomberg News, wore mostly black and gray and usually skipped makeup. She and her husband, who worked in finance, spent their free time cooking, walking Smith's rescue dog, and going on literary pub crawls. "We had the perfect little Brooklyn life," Smith says. Then she chucked it all. Note Christy Smith, Bloomberg, a journalist, and her husband, who worked in finance, do not have any children, which I think is very significant as to what happened afterwards. What exactly is it that was joining these two? Was it the bounds of holy matrimony? A few people believe in that anymore. Was it their shared interests, their dog, their love of cooking and literary pub crawls? These are not very strong bonds. Over the course of 9 months, beginning in July 2018, Smith quit her job, moved out of the apartment, and divorced her husband. What could cause the sensible Smith to turn her life upside down? She fell in love with a defendant whose case she not only covered, but broke the news of his arrest. It was a scoop that ignited the internet because her love interest, now life partner, is not just any defendant, but Martin Shkreli, the so-called Pharma Bro, an online provocateur, who increased the price of a life-saving drug by 5,000% overnight and made headlines for buying a one-off Wu-Tang Clan album for a reported $2 million. Shkreli, convicted of fraud in 2017, is now serving 7 years in prison. I read once, I don't have the exact details, the list of professions for women that you'd want to avoid. You'd want to avoid marrying women in certain professions if you were worried, well, that they would cheat on you, that they would be looking to trade up, as they say. And journalism was near the top of the list. The legal profession, I believe, could have been at the top. I fell down the rabbit hole, Smith tells me, sitting in her bright basement apartment in Harlem, not living in Park Slope anymore, speaking publicly about a romance with Shkreli for the first time. The relationship has made her completely rethink her earlier work covering the courts as she looks back on all the little decisions she made that caused this giant break in her life. She says she has no regrets. I'm happy here. I feel like I have a purpose. And there's a picture of the journalist, Christy Smith, here. She's wearing a very colorful dress, which is, what is it? Rotata Berger Christensen. Oh, and her earrings come from Alta Zura. I don't know. She's a rather plain-looking woman in her 40s. I suppose exactly that sort of woman who is looking for a grand romantic adventure. And she got one. More than 4 years earlier, in January 2016, Smith stood outside the Pient Park skyscraper where Martin Shkreli's company, Turing Pharmaceuticals, had its offices, clutching a camera, about to meet the man himself for the first time. So just she had in the morning, Shkreli had been charged the month before with defrauding investors at hedge funds he'd run earlier in his career, and he made a habit of regularly taunting journalists like her. How do I manage the situation? She remembers wondering. Growing up outside Kansas City, Missouri, Smith was terrified of the sound of my voice, she says, till high school, when her passion for reporting overrode her shyness. Smith had a defiant streak, railing in her Catholic girls' school newspaper about fines for wearing uniforms improperly. Oh, this woman just looked like a barrel of fun, doesn't she? When her parents asked her to take her brothers to church, she would defiantly take us to McDonald's instead, her brother, Michael Smith, says. Wow. Hicklib, who hates religion and loves literary pub crawls, no children, lives in Brooklyn. Is there going to be a happy ending here? No. No, there is not going to be a happy ending. Maybe I was charmed by a master manipulator. One doesn't want to mock this woman. He was a master manipulator. And he is also, what do they say, on the spectrum, I believe. So, I don't know. She thinks that this is a project. She's going to reform this. She's going to save Shkreli. Smith wasn't covering the trial for Bloomberg. She was on book leave, but she was there in the courtroom every day, sometimes sitting with Shkreli's supporters, friends from the internet, who'd rarely interacted with him in person until then. Once they all ate lunch with Shkreli in the court cafeteria, and they also went out for drinks a couple of times after the proceedings adjourned. Smith said she wanted to tunnel to who are his core people, who should my sources be, and hear backstories of Shkreli on each day's testimony. Yes, these are incremental decisions where you're like slowly boiling yourself to death in the bathtub. Yes, people, well, I would say more women than men are fond of the phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That is exactly the opposite of the truth. The road to hell is paved with bad intentions. Yes, so Bloomberg finds out that she's been sleeping with her story, and she tenders her resignation. There's a bunch of pictures of this woman dressed in very colorful frocks, I must say. I mean, this is a fashion magazine. The second dress here, which is a black dress with poppies on it, I believe, it comes from The Vampire's Wife. And again, the earrings from Alta Zara. Yeah, let's see. The final paragraph. I can't gauge Shkreli's motive and ask Smith what she thinks. That's him saying, you're going to live your life and we're just not going to be together. See, what happened is that they became engaged, or so she believes. And after she had wrecked her career to support Shkreli, he ghosted her, as the kids like to say. That's him saying, you're going to live your life and we're just not going to be together, that I'm going to maybe get my book and that our paths will, she sighs, will fork. She tears up, and I think about what her journalism professor said about everyone having an agenda. Watching Smith, I finally realized her motive for telling her story. She wants Shkreli and hopes putting their love on the record might at last give her some power in the relationship. He bounces between this delight at having a future life together and this fatalism about how it will never work. Smith says, it's definitely in the latter category now. Sitting in her basement apartment, her eyes wet, her voice quavering, she says she will continue to wait for him while he serves the remaining years of a sentence. I'm going to try, she says. I'll be here. A very sad story and definitely a cautionary tale. No question about that. Let's talk about authenticity. Let's talk about racial authenticity. This is from the Canadian Press. Michelle Latimer says she's resigning from the second season of CBC's Indigenous TV series Trickster, where she served as co-creator and director. The Thunder Bay, Ontario-raised filmmaker said it's with a heavy heart she's leaving the production after seeking advice over concerns raised about the accuracy of her claimed Indigenous ancestry. Latimer posted a Facebook message on Monday saying, I've listened to my community and feel that stepping away from the production is the appropriate course of action. The decision comes near the end of a whirlwind year that saw Latimer's star rise in the context of being a voice among Indigenous creators. She scored praise for Trickster, which was pitched as a Canadian series made by an Indigenous cast and crew, while her documentary Inconvenient Indian won 2 awards at the Toronto International Film Festival in September. Latimer had previously said she was of Algonquin, Métis, and French heritage from the Kitigan, Zibi, Anishinaabe, and Maniwaki area in Quebec, but a CBC investigation last week challenged those claims and raised issues over her self-identification. On Thursday, Latimer wrote that she made a mistake in naming Kitigan Zibi as her family's community before verifying the linkage. This is something one has to investigate? She said she has reached out to elders and community historians to receive guidance and obtain verifications. Yes, she's going to the high priests. I stand by who I am and by my family's histories, but I also understand what is being asked of me, Latimer said. I recognize my responsibility to be accountable to the community and to my fellow artists, and that is why I've made this decision. Trickster is based on a series of novels by Eden Robinson that tell the story of a teenager from Kitimat, BC, who discovers he has magical powers passed down through generations. Other people will call this witchcraft. Robinson issued her own statement Monday addressed to her community, saying she was so embarrassed and felt like such a dupe. As wretched as this moment is, I'd rather know the truth. Oh, the pain, the pain. Here's a woman who desperately wants to be Native Indian, indigenous. And so she says that she is. And she invents what the young folks call a backstory. How is this an insult to Native Indians? It's just, to me, it is rather the opposite. Nobody wants to be members of a racial group or tribe, which is a non-entity, which is on the outs. Hence, Latimer's flight from whiteness. And called Untethered, he has a piece 6 days ago called The Neo-Colonial Style. The mural above has been lording it over a neighborhood in downtown Portland for about a month. Vertically oriented, it towers over the street. The feet of the black woman with the dowdy Aboriginal features are suspended in air as if she's rising from the overturned pedestal of the George Washington statue toppled here in Portland, June 8th, summer of another George. The father of the nation's name is crossed out. The text below it reads, I choose to prepare a place and a future for our grandchildren, a place where they will live outside of oppression, a place where they will know it's okay to be Black, Native, and Afro-indigenous. I see you, ancestors. Dennis Dale comments, of course, if you live in any major urban area of the United States, you become used to Black uplift kitsch. I remember watching depressed as the mural below went up, an innocent Black child looking hopefully to the future. Such a thing would be harmless if not for its ubiquity and context. A similar image of a white child can be offered now. Portland has long been contorting to accommodate its tiny but troublesome Black population, a whole 6%, with the usual outsized contributions to dysfunction. Before the mask came off this summer, propagandists came at us with the usual weapons, such an innocent child looking off into a hopeful future. Who could object? What monster would? Woodrow Wilson High School is to be rechristened after the summer riots washed away any opposition to the campaign to rename a slew of schools honoring white men, or, if there are any left, the indigenous, ironically. The city has determined the school will now honor one of 5 Black Oregonian women of achievement they claim to have found. This, of course, would be hard if we used traditional metrics of achievement, such as, say, building schools. But we'll have to find a lot more of them and others underrepresented in our besieged annals of achievement. There are so many schools, monuments, buildings, and the like to claim. When statues of Teddy Roosevelt and Abraham Lincoln came down on Antifa's Indigenous Peoples' Day of Rage, October 11th, the Oregon Historical Society across the way wasn't spared. A mural of Lewis and Clark with, I assume, Sacagawea and Clark's slave York, who served on the expedition, was defaced with red paint. Poor York, who did not gain his freedom after serving ably in the Lewis and Clark expedition, but at least earned an honored place in history, is treated like an embarrassment now by the pasty enlightened on behalf of the indigenous. His statue came down at the University of Portland in June. The bronze statue of York, who was Clark's slave, was gone Wednesday afternoon. Workers appeared to be preparing the monument's 2 remaining figures of Clark and an unnamed native guide for removal. The monument, dedicated in 1988, is intended to depict Clark naming Mount Jefferson, called Indian names by tribes that originally inhabited the land. The university has yet to respond to questions about the removal of the York statue and the school's future plans for the monument. Historical monuments tied to slavery and colonization have drawn renewed attention in the weeks after the Minneapolis police killing of George Floyd. Quote, these statues stand as a visual reminder that 3 races contributed to the success of the Lewis and Clark expedition, symbolic of the first integrated society in Oregon society, quote, unquote. A plaque on the monument reads. Notably, the monument went up with all the good intentions of liberal convention at the time, even praising diversity. The cultural takeover eats its young when swallowing up its platitudes from just a few years before. Progressives now aren't just hostile to liberals, they're hostile to last season's progressives. But let's dig into this idea of Black indigenous. It's fascinating to me. I really don't understand this, but let's let Dennis explain. Afro-indigenous is a phrase being thrown around a lot now, pairing indigenous with the central theme of Black oppression, putting it on a par with that holy of holies, suggests to me deliberation from on high. No one, not even Donald Trump, stood in capable defense of a slandered and abused white America this last summer. The nation, such as it is, surrendered to Black Lives Matter without a shot being fired, but without shooting back. We're still not getting shot at. The terms of our surrender, which are vague, don't seem to include a cessation of hostilities. So our progressive moral overlords are expanding operations and tactics. Thus the prominence now of the indigenous cause, even if you still don't see many indigenous on the ground, and fewer the higher you look in their cause. But that's a feature, of course, not a bug for those running things. As for the real Indians out there, I'm beginning to envy their position, established sovereignty in their reservations. Expect to hear a lot more about the indigenous, Dennis Dale concludes, as part of the project to displace natives. So the descendants of the colonists of America aren't indigenous, and thus are second rate. They're colonizers. They stole the land. Now, what the slaves that they imported are not indigenous either, and they came after the first settlers, the first colonialists, but somehow they have some sort of kinship with the native Indians. Very, very strange. Very, very strange. You see a similar alliance between the two kinds of Indians in my country, between the native Indians and the so-called East Indians, dot and feather. People who have come from India, direct immigrants even, rage against colonialism, which is the absolute height of chutzpah. One expects them to be struck down by lightning, but that is yet to happen. Of course, we are now being told that the indigenous of Europe are not indigenous either. The indigenous of Europe being white people. They are second rate. They deserve to be punished for colonialism and the like. And I believe that I mentioned this before, but I will mention it again because it's relevant to the question of indigenous. White people are never indigenous. People are the enemy everywhere. This is from Sarah Owen, MP, despite her Welsh name. She is a Labour MP for Luton North, chair of Chinese for Labour, hates inequality and VAWG, whatever that means. I thought hard before posting this because knee-jerk reactions help no one, but it's the daughter of Malaysian immigrant. This is personal. Malaysian? Yeah, maybe Malaysian, but you are not Malay. You are Chinese. Chinese live in the market-dominant minority in Malaysia, and to say that the Malays hate their guts is probably understating it. Sarah Owen continues, the idea of indigenous people of Britain and use of this term, especially by far right, needs to be challenged at every point. What do people mean when they say indigenous Brit? Romans, Anglo-Saxons, Vikings, Normans, Huguenots? Well, I can tell you, Sarah Owen, since you've obviously never studied history, not very many Romans came to Britain, and a lot of them left. Anglo-Saxons, yeah, okay. Vikings, not very many Vikings came to England. Normans, a relative handful. Huguenots, a relative handful. The genetic composition of the people of England was, until the overwhelming recent immigration of the last couple of decades, very similar to what it was thousands of years ago. Sarah Owen says, it reminds me of a brutal sketch by comedian Stuart Lee, who questions how far back we go. Our island has experienced immigration since the beginning of time. The shocking, shocking insight there from Sarah Owen. Stuart Lee, I wouldn't ask him for the time of day. He's one of these ranters. Oh, do you know that there's always been immigration? Well, actually, in the past, they called it conquest. They called it conquest. As Peter Brimlow likes to say, people didn't sprout up out of the ground. They came from somewhere else. In the context of more recent British history, there needs serious self-reflection and awareness, i.e. grumbling, about the fact that we took over and colonized other countries. What does that have to do with the concept of indigenous in Britain? Forcing people into poverty, and in some cases to the edge of existence. This should be in the school curriculum. Oh, I'm sure it is, Sarah Owen. As well as indigenous Britain, we should seriously challenge the term expat. If mainstream media and culture use the term immigrant to describe people who have come from another country to ours, why not the other way round? It's a double standard that should end. These terms are not in opposition. This comes back to how British culture and values are defined. To me, the NHS is the best of British. There's one thing that ties the majority of us together. Ha, ha, ha. Very satirical. People from across the globe coming together to care for others in a British institution with equality at its heart. I think that people in NHS hospitals would prefer expertise, say, and caring, professionalism, rather than equality. And I think that the vast majority of Britons would prefer to be looked after by other Britons. And a couple of things quickly. This is a real story that appeared in The Nation, which used to be a respectable magazine, on December 17th by Brandon Hasbrook. I can't say I've ever heard of this fellow. Never mind. The votes of Black Americans should count twice. Vote reparations would empower us to replace oppressive institutions with life-affirming structures of equality. Black votes in this country are worth less than white votes, he argues. Joe Biden won the Electoral College because black voters in Atlanta, Detroit, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia. Oh, really? Wow, that's pretty bold. You're gonna go there, are you? Turned out in significant numbers. Yes, remarkable numbers. But even with overwhelming black support, 94% of Detroit voted for Biden. That is weapons-grade balonium. The outcomes in Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania were worryingly close. Our core problem is the Electoral College. Wyoming, which has just 580,000 residents and is 93% white. Boo! Gets 3 electors because of its 2 senators and 1 representative of the House. By comparison, Georgia's 5th congressional district, which includes Atlanta, has 710,000 residents and is 58% black, has no dedicated electors or senators, and can only occasionally overcome the mostly white and conservative votes elsewhere in the state. Well, that's the way that the United States was set up on purpose, not as a democracy, but as a constitutional republic. Of course, the fear was that a handful of cities would dominate politics in the United States. And so the Electoral College, and to give another example, the Senate were established as they are to prevent that from happening. What is Barry Obama up to? He's become America's cultural curator. I've talked about this before, but he's not going to stop. He is not going to stop. He's got some more lists. His favorite movies and TV shows of 2020. Movies: Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Beanpole, Baccarat, Nomadland, Soul, Lovers Rock, Collective, Mank, Martin Eden, Let Him Go, Time, Boy State, Salah and the Spades, Crip Camp, which is a Higher Ground production. That is to say, Obama and his lady wife. TV shows: Better Call Saul, The Queen's Gambit, I May Destroy You, The Boys, The Good Lord Bird, Debs, The Last Dance, Mrs. America, The Good Place, and City So Real. Again, you see any outliers there in this list? No. Obama's a midwit hipster. And I just wonder, how many planning sessions and how many interns or staffers were involved in the creation of this list. You gotta satisfy everyone there, And his favorite music of 2020, Megan Thee Stallion. Yep. Twerking. Got to get the twerking in there. Savage remix. Oh, Jeff Tweedy. because Obama really loves alt country, because of course he would. Franchise Travis Scott featuring Young Thug and MIA. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. The Bigger Picture by Lil Baby. But then, a nod to the past there. Ghosts by Bruce Springsteen. Levitating, Dua Lipa featuring DaBaby. The kids are very excited about Dua Lipa. She's the next big thing, apparently. Goodbye, Jimmy Reed by Bob Dylan. That is a double shot, because Jimmy Reed was a Chicago blues man of the 50s, 60s. And of course, Bob Dylan, come on. Wow, that cultural cross-fertilization there. That is just a outstanding pick. Outstanding. Oh, Lemonade by Internet Money featuring Don Toliver, Gunna, and NAV. La Difficile by Bad Bunny. Well, yeah, I figured that would be on this list. If you know what's what, you love Bad Bunny. At least that's what, my friends and I say. This is... Americans thought they were electing a president, but they were electing the mid-wit Pope. And yeah, that's it. Gonna wrap it up right here. I hope I hope this wasn't too bad in terms of physical presentation. Chad Chadson, a valiant moderator, says we get $600, but Israel gets $500 million. Seem legit. Pretty arrogant trolling naming those cities creeps. I don't know what that's a reference to. Halper says the extremist academic theory of today is blaring from every loudspeaker tomorrow. Yeah, WAP by Cardi B. Just cognitive dissonant. Half Galician says the dude is rich. Why would he want mid-40s woman once he's free? Well, I don't know. I suppose perhaps there's an element of sadism there. That he destroyed this woman's career. And she was with Bloomberg, which is a highly respected financial publication. Maybe he just wanted to see, how far he could take a woman. Some men are like that. Someone railing against 2 cents here. 2 cents railing against 5 killer here. Enron says, I like J5, but he's mostly just cheerleading at this point. We shall see. We shall see. Metatron says, peace out, chat. KMG, just have to leave. Some love to my dude. KMG, got to get up early tomorrow. Well, thank you for that. Thank you. Tom Anderson, KMG, you heard that Trump is floating a return of the apprentice once he leaves office. I'm not buying it. At least Trump is concentrating on one thing now. And the media has been pushing these stories. Look, Drudge was pushing this even, on Election Day? That Trump was going to start his own rival to Fox News, despite the fact that Newsmax and OANN are already significant rivals to Fox News. Everything that the media says about Trump is a lie. It's that simple. And it's been true as soon as he announced for president. Contra Cruz says, KMG, look up the Ready, Set, Prep program, federally sponsored HIV prophylaxis. Okay. Well, thank you for the comment about my jacket, Metatron. My Beijing contact, Hunter, says Brandon Smith. Pelcasso 88 says Sailor doesn't think there was election fraud. He can't put a question of proportion. Visionary Companion says someone should infiltrate this list and suggest strongly that Obama should admire pus drip thug Paul. Okay. I'll be back on the air tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, as the days start to get longer. It's a long climb back. If you like this show, or any part of it, I'd appreciate it if you click on the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not done so already. I plan to be on the air Thursday and Friday, and what's coming up on there? I'm talking about on Theater Thursday, Noel, which is a film about a famous incident, a truce during a Christmas truce during World War I. And on Christmas Day, I intend to read Leo Tolstoy's story, What Men Live By. If you would like to support this live stream with a donation, which would be especially appreciated now, considering my circumstances and the uncertainty which I face, my PayPal account is at kevin_grace@hotmail.com. Once again, kevin_grace@hotmail.com. If you're Canadian, you can send a donation directly via Interac at kevingrace@shaw.ca. And I shall leave you with this, my traditional benediction in these days of social atomization and civilizational collapse. I do dearly wish that you, my dear listeners and viewers, manage to find a genuine human connection in order to ease the burden. Good night.